Hello, my name is Victor Steckel. I've been here at Green Acres for about 37.5 years, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about my World Studies course that the kids have been taking for a while. First of all, the question came, why did I end up writing my own textbook? And so that question goes back even back to 1987. And so I was teaching geography, which was a part of social studies, and Diane Hazen was the primary social studies teacher. So I was teaching geography like 1 or 2 periods a week, and it was 1987, and Mikhail Gorbachev was starting to change the world. And it goes back to this question I always have of what can I do to help kids understand the modern world and what's happening around them. And so I went to Ann Goodrich, the director at the time, and I said, Ann, I'm teaching geography, but I feel like I need to be teaching a course on the Cold War. And she didn't think about it much, and she said, Victor, I think you're right. And so midstream, sometime in February or March, we changed the course over from a geography course and the 5 themes of geography and political geography to a course about immediately what Mikhail was doing to change the world and to change the Cold War. And so I began teaching that history course. And of course, there was nothing I had that could really give me much except for what I came up with. So I read the Washington Post, I took resources and things, and I would write up what I would call these white papers. I'd write a white paper about the Berlin airlift, or I'd write a white paper about the Cuban Missile Crisis, or I'd write a white paper about the war in Afghanistan. And so I started generating this amount of writing for something that was very up to date and something I thought that the students could use. And so in 2000, Diane Hazen and I were using a text that we were very unhappy with. Generally, there wasn't a text from World War II to the present that we were happy to teach with. And so I said, I'm going to write my own book. And so I got a grant, a summer grant from school in 2000, and I got a second grant and even a third grant over the next few years to put together this book, and I'm very proud to have it. This is the textbook that the 8th graders now have, and the front and the back covers are done by students. The textbook has been edited by students for vocabulary. Here's the back cover, which I don't know if you can read much of that, but it gives you an idea of what some of the topics were or are. If you look at the front, you can see we have the Cold War, and we have atomic bombs going off, but we also have the I Have a Dream speech, and we have the Cold War signified by the bear and the eagle fighting over the earth, and the Chinese here starving for democracy, which are the exact correct Chinese letters that I had Tina Chan go over, and of course Gorbachev here, and breaking down the Iron Curtain, and we have more recent people like Hillary and Barack and Donald here. And of course this is the LGBTQ gay rights. We have Facebook and Twitter, so we have modern things. So this is the cover of the book that tells you a lot about what's inside of it. It's over 300 pages now. But I felt like students needed to, what could I write that tells them a history that helps them to understand not only what's going on in our country, but what's going on in the modern world overall. And so that book has been used by 8th grade Green Acre students since about 2005. So that gives it about 16 years now. And kids really enjoy the book. It's written in an informal style. I've gotten reports back about how, well, we jettisoned the regular textbook and just used yours for the AP history exam because, it told us what we needed to know. So I've gotten good reports about it. Kids take it to college with them, to continue to have it by their side. So every year it gets updated. So every year I update the whole thing. I read the Washington Post every morning for 30, 45 minutes. I'm looking for things in history that corroborate what's in the book, or in some cases, if it disagrees, then I have to do more research and I get back to work on it. But I also update it by the year. So it's been difficult to update sometimes, especially during the former president's tenure, Donald J. Trump. And that was probably one of the hardest things for me to write, because I had to write it as a history text. And of course, history is yet to be written in many ways, although they say journalism is the first take on history. But it's been difficult to keep it up to date. Every summer I spend, at least 20 to 40 hours on it. And so it's been a real enjoyable thing to have. So the events of 2020 got me thinking, and of course in the spring at the end of school, we were virtual, but we talked about what was going on in the Black Lives Movement and about George Floyd's killing. And during the summer, I took a course on how to design curriculum in a virtual world. And it was supposed to be like it was a few days. Everybody was supposed to design their own little project. And I decided I would chew up something very large. And so I decided that I would attempt to handle the issue of race in America since its founding, and give kids a background on what had led to George Floyd's death. So I kind of I guess it was my own 1619 project. But I started out thinking, well, it's going to be about 10 pages, and I'll cover the Atlantic slave trade, the Civil War, and those things very quickly, which I did. So I wrote a paper which was supported by the textbook. So I'd already done a lot of research on the founding of the AACP and the Tulsa Race Massacre, and the fact that African Americans did not benefit from Social Security or the GI Bill sufficiently, and on through the Civil Rights Movement and Rodney King and so on, all the way up through George Floyd. So I wrote, it turned out to be 41 pages. I had photographs and pictures with text, and I did something new. I put video links in the document, which was both electronic and paper. And so when the kids read about the Atlantic slave trade, then they could see a 4-minute or 3-minute YouTube video from Roots, the second Roots, about what the Atlantic slave trade was like. And so it dawned on me that, kids 13 and 14 these days, 20 years ago, photos were probably enough. Now they need video. And so each section, 2 or 3 video links per page, were in this document. And so I organized the students into groups. They read the document, they watched the videos, and they answered some questions. And so, hey, that was good. We got some collaboration going, and they chose what they wanted to do because they had choices about what they wanted to cover. And then I thought, well, let's make this a little more serious. And so each student wrote a paper about race and the issue of race. And some people focused on some older times, some people focused on just Black Lives Matter, some people focused on the Civil Rights Movement, what I call the classic Civil Rights Movement in the 50s and 60s. So I got these fabulous papers with tremendous introductions, and I decided, well, let's make this, let's put out a broader view to it. So several of the kids then read parts of their paper at the Martin Luther King celebration, both the one at school and the one that Mary Singh organized that was on Martin Luther King Day. And so this was something I felt like, the students this age, they're very glued to the issue of fairness, and of course race and LGBTQ rights come into that very much. And so those topics and subjects are, I think, critical for kids of this age about our country and about the world. Now I wanted to finish with, we talked about learning about the world as well, because it's world studies, right? It's not American studies. And so, as many of you know, the World Studies course leads into the Model United Nations at the end of the year. And so the last 2 to 3 weeks of school are research preparation, and then finally our 2-day debate. And so I just wanted to I'm going to read to you the names of the resolutions, the topics. These were the topics that the 8th graders of 2021 covered when we had our Model United Nations in the AP quiz last June of 2021. So these are the topics, and of course they were representing countries. They had different viewpoints based on their country. They did research that sometimes led them to things that they did not believe. They found themselves being united with other countries that they didn't think that could happen with, and they were sometimes surprised at what the speeches said and how the rebuttals came out. So the 10 topics we covered and voted on were the COVID-19 vaccines and the equity of distributing them throughout the world, immigration, nuclear disarmament, women's rights, North Korea, global disinformation, the Uyghurs in China, the Israeli-Palestinian question, LGBTQ rights, and of course climate change. So those were the topics that the students researched and debated, and that's what sent them off to high school. That was their last academic activity. Thank you.